Everyone, and welcome to another Top 5 Records video. Today I'm going to be talking about one of my all-time favorite albums. It is Today by Mississippi John Hurt. And what I'm holding here is an original, but we recently had another release, a reissue by none other than Craft Recordings, known for their audiophile reissues. And they released this version in their Bluesville Acoustic Sound Series. So, which version of this record is gonna be the best? I'm gonna be talking about that. First, let me start off with the version that I owned first. That is this one. I found it during the last major record fair in Den Bosch, here in the Netherlands, which is the biggest record fair in the world. And I had been looking for a vinyl copy of this record for quite some time. I listened to the audio on Spotify and I got hooked. I mean, this album has so much beauty. The playing, the singing of Mississippi John Hurt is just incredible. There is an intimacy, there is a craft. And there's also this element of a time gone by. Mississippi John Hurt is one of those artists that in the 20s was, one of the most skillful players in the blues tradition. And he did some incredible recordings back then. There is a record, the 1928 recordings, which may be the best sounding of those field recordings, because Mississippi John Hurt doesn't shout. I can't say he mumbles either, but it's soft. It's as if he's whispering you his songs, which give it such an incredible intimacy, but also a different level of storytelling. And everything else he does with his fingers. I mean, these are such skillful guitar patterns. The playing, it's just astonishing. The interesting thing is, though, after the 20s, there were, the financial problems of the time. Blues records were not being sold anymore because basically the labels decided that music for the black market was the first one they would cut down on. So in the 30s, in the 40s, and in the 50s, this man didn't play. He didn't play. Then in the late 50s, or some part even of the early 60s, we had this blues revival. And a big music fan, a big blues fan, listened to one of the old recordings from the 20s, and he heard Mississippi John Hurt talk about a town. I'm doubting if that song is here in a re-recording. No, it's not here. But he sings about a town, and they decide to go to that town. And they asked, is Mississippi John Hurt around? And they found him. And he was in a pretty good shape. Someone like Sunhouse had the same situation, but he had been drinking a lot. But both they didn't play guitar anymore because there was no audience, there were no recordings. Blues was dead in a certain way in that period, at least for the larger audience. So in the 60s, when Mississippi John Hurt started playing these songs again, he still had the skill of that young man, but the freshness of somebody who hasn't played in decades. And that skill is being recorded here. But these are also the last years of his life. So there's also an emotional depth, which is mostly heard actually in the record after this one. Now, I'm elaborating too much about this record and the story and everything it does to me. Well, I should be talking about the sound quality. So, sorry about that. I found this record at the record fair. I was so happy. It's still with the original seal. I think you can see a bit of it. It was open on the side, but it's still in the original seal, an original pressing. And the quality of this original Vanguard pressing is stunning. The cover and the vinyl are in near mint minus condition. I did an ultrasonic cleaning on it So I'm pretty much listening to the record as it's fresh. And you hear minor pops, a little crackle, which I think are part of the master, because the vinyl isn't just in great shape. Maybe the quality of the vinyl here, but I'm getting into details about that later on when I'm comparing it to the Bluesville reissue. But I'm talking about minor. I mean, you are in such close audible contact with Mississippi John Hurt here that is just incredible. This is a great, gorgeous sounding record. The recording is actually pretty silent, very concentrated. It's not a messy blues session. This is as controlled as it can get. The sound of the guitar here is beautiful and detailed. The sound of his voice is brilliant and delicate, and there's so much nuance in the recording and pressing. This is one of those recordings and pressings that breathe atmosphere, and the atmosphere of that gorgeous performance, of the personality of the artist. The beautiful detail reflects what is going on. It makes for an intimate recording that is completely, fully audible here. Honestly, when Bluesville, a relatively new series, the Bluesville Acoustic Sound Series, announced this title, I already had this one, so I was not interested to buy the Bluesville one, because this has all the atmosphere and nostalgia an original pressing has. It's still in seal. The quality is stunning. Why should I even bother? Well, I didn't. I didn't. Because I didn't buy it. A friend of mine bought it because he was curious about this series. And he just bought it to compare it to the original. And I came over to his house and I did this comparison 2 times, on his system and my system. And in both instances, I was beyond any surprise. I thought the original it's impossible to improve on. The mastering engineer, Matthew Luthans, I didn't hear anything from him, not knowingly that he did a beautiful T-Bone Walker reissue for the Analog Productions 45 RPM series about last year, which sounds stunning. But he did. This is the mastering lab, and he's immediately a mastering engineer. That's on my radar, because this is of a detail and a clarity that is just stunning. I had no idea this information was available on this record. It has the minor pops and crackles that the original has as well, so I guess they are in the master, but it wasn't bothering me then on the other one. It's not bothering me on this one. It is just stunning. This one is just, honestly, I can say better. Usually when a reissue or an audiophile reissue has more detail or more clarity, then there is something in the texture of the sound that is lacking that an original has. Sometimes it's a certain freshness, sometimes it is just a different kind of texture. Audio texture is very hard to define. This is not the case here. It's just more detailed, very clear. Might say it's a little bit more brighter, but that's nitpicking, because the overall quality is just stunning. You hear more of the performance, of the briefing, of the details that didn't make it on the other pressing. It's a gorgeous audiophile record, and by now Bluesville, which is not an expensive series, about $40 per pressing, and they have some interesting titles. They are on my radar. I'm keeping a lookout for this. So I'm curious, what do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Leave a comment below, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.